Hello everyone and welcome to a slightly translated in space Top Drives show. We're tentatively calling this season 1.5, I guess. I mean, it's almost season 2. I'm sure we'll get there eventually, but we are in a brand new year. It's 2019. It still feels weird saying that. It feels like we've barely been away, but we are back and we've got news, so let's go straight in with the Top Drive show. So in classic New Year spirit, what we're going to do now is talk about last year. So Tim, we've got some things that have been historically mentioned and talked about a lot, and we wanted to just go through those so that we can clear the slate and get going with all new stuff for this year.
That's right.
So what have we got?
So we call for your questions here and we answer them, but we've reached the point now where there's some questions keep coming back, even though we have technically answered them. This seemed like a good moment to take a quick look back at those, just to address those for anybody who missed them the first time round, real quick. So the first one that comes up all the time, people go, oh, wouldn't it be great if we could trade our cards somehow, or like auction them to each other or something like that? So real quickly, the 3 reasons why that wouldn't necessarily be great. One is, where's my notes? Yes, very hard to make it non-exploitable. People can create more accounts for free, get good cards, trade them onto their main account, all that kind of thing. Secondly, there are potential legal issues where it makes it easier for people to sell their cards, and then we're getting into, I don't know, gambling legislation, all sorts of things like that. Very dangerous territory that we don't really want to go into. And finally, even if you could solve all those problems, it's not necessarily that great for the game. As an individual, you can imagine going, oh, wouldn't it be great if I could swap this car I don't want for one I do? But if you imagine everybody else in the game is able to do the same, probably the people with the most resources who already have the best cars and duplicates of them would benefit the most from it, and it would just increase inequality.
Yeah, I think kind of on that point, it's sort of like if we put it in, and it's not, you know, I would say it's not without interest. I think it's one of the questions that comes up that it's obvious that it comes up because it's potentially an obvious thing to do with the game. But I think just based on those points that you're saying, I think if we put a system in, it would have so many limitations that I'm not sure it would actually do what people really want it to do, which is kind of just this free trading where you're just sharing stuff whenever you want it.
So that's the challenge. It's either so limited it doesn't do what you want, or it's not limited but it creates all these problems. And it's like, is there any way to find somewhere in the middle?
I would say we'll keep thinking about it. Yeah,
I've sort of given up, but yeah,
I'm still, it's still on my little scribbly list that I still explore from time to time. So still get some thought.
All right. And then the other evergreen question is, can we have more campaign? It's funny, after you've been playing the game for a very long time, you almost forget about it. I mean, I saw a great comment in the in-game forum where somebody said, I've beaten the campaign, what do I do now? And somebody said, congratulations on beating the tutorial for the game. It can take people, months to beat the campaign. You can beat it in a few days if you really, really go for it. But it is, in a way, just teaching you the game, and then events and all that kind of stuff is the real game. And that's part of the problem. You can add a lot, and really, if we added twice as much campaign as there is now, I think within days, most of the hardcore super engaged players would have just beaten it and rinsed it and done it and be ready for the next thing.
There's no way that infrastructure can scale when we've left people for so long to build up amazing hands and varied garages.
And so the weekly challenge was sort of part of a step towards that. It's like, okay, here's a bit of player versus game content every week that is fresh. That's not to say there aren't ways to do more campaign. We've talked about how you couldn't really just keep scaling up and having harder opponents, and you need even better cars because that gets harder and harder to do. What's more interesting in Top Drives is the breadth of your collection. So some sort of version of the campaign that gets at that would be interesting and is conceivable. So you could that is on a list.
It's definitely on the list.
The other one is what I think people talk about. Couldn't we have teams or clubs or clans or factions or things like that? And we're like, one way or another, that is a great idea, and that is on the list as well. Probably higher on the list than campaign and some other things.
Yeah, not without its issues, but I think we've got a clearer idea of how that could work.
Exactly. So yeah, just watch this space.
So here we are, we're going into our first round of questions for the year, and we start off with Casual Mobile Gaming, who's a big friend of ours, who says, do you have any new features that you've thought of that are so game-changing that you've considered making Top Drives 2?
Oh.
Okay, which that's a pretty big overarching question.
It is. It's also feels like a dangerous question.
Very dangerous.
To answer at all. And I was going to... Yeah, I feel like my New Year's resolution should be that I don't just say that everything is happening and everything is going on the list and I want everything to be in the game.
But you do.
But I do. Game changing. Yeah, I guess the short answer is yes. There's there's nothing without trying to be sort of immodest. There's nothing quite like Top Drives out there. It's quite a kind of new experience. It was a new experience for us building it, kind of quite a new experience for the market. It feels like naturally when you're in that space, when you realize that there's something, there's something there's something that people are enjoying and that we can kind of build on and add to. There's a lot of different ways we can kind of build to and add to it. And yes, some of those are definitely quite fundamental. I think it's something that we're just really happy with, sort of the core of Top Drives, in its current form just now. We feel like there's a lot that we can do with that. There's a lot of ways that we can kind of we want to explore more ways to kind of get people using their current car collections in interesting ways is definitely the focus. But that's not to say that in the far future we'll have sort of some people looking at what could be coming next, and what happens if you change some sort of fundamental aspects of the game. So,
well, and there's the whole spectrum of possibilities, right? There's Top Drives, there's things we can do with it, and then there's this was so radical it will be Top Drives 2, or this is so radical and beyond that it would just be another game.
Yeah, different game. Yes,
Yeah.
I think with the stuff that's really changes the way you play the game, it's probably easiest to not really think of that as a Top Drives product, and it's actually something different.
Yeah.
And then we would figure out whether that's worth exploring or not.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. So thanks, CMG. You've picked yourself up a carbon fiber pack for that Hutch pick. Speaking of which, we're thinking about doing some different kinds of giveaways for the new season. So if you have any cool ideas about kinds of giveaways we could do, feel free to leave those in the comments as well, separate from your questions, please, because otherwise it's going to be an absolute nightmare to sift through. Go straight to another one here. We've got another carbon fiber pack here for Samsung Tab 3, who we've heard from before.
Yeah.
How about a new game mode, Next Challenges? You get a loaned garage, a loaned RQ, so like separate entirely from your own garage, and go through a few worlds. There's a timer and some challenges. You need to finish something before the timer runs out to get good prizes. Perhaps you have to beat 3 bosses, have a final deck of 80 RQ, earn 25 stars or more, something like that. So essentially they're asking for a sort of a generation beyond these challenges where it's not really about your collection but more about your strategy without your collection being in play.
I mean, some people get like a weird sort of version of this if they get another device or create a new account and start Top Drives completely afresh and try and beat the campaign. They discover with everything they know and they've learned, it's a totally different experience, and you can enjoy that in a different way. That's interesting.
It's actually that just feels like a really interesting idea. We doesn't feel like it's for once it's not something that I can say is kind of on a list and has been thought about.
That's not on a list.
Sort of feels quite fresh. I mean, I know that there's sort of this concept of kind of loaned events in a number of other games that we play.
Yeah.
And it works well. It actually does get around an interesting issue, which is that we have so many cars, like you were saying. There's so many different ways that you can progress through Top Drives, and your collection can be built up. That actually, building a challenge that's going to be sort of the kind of strategic element is actually very difficult because people's garages are so varied that it's hard to build kind of opponents that are going to kind of give a similar strategy to everyone. So actually, that that's quite a nice way of getting around that. If everyone has the same starting sort of small set of cars.
Yeah, it's really, it kind of like, it strikes me as sort of like a hardcore save kind of thing. It's really interesting as a layer underneath what we already have.
But how far would it go? Like,
I don't know.
All the money and things you earn in that mode just go into the cars in that mode.
And when you finish your session, it all disappears.
And then you get something for your real collection.
Yeah, I mean, maybe you'd put a reward at the end so that it wasn't just a pointless pursuit.
Yes, I think we could easily kind of just visually differentiate those cards. For the duration of that event, it's very clear that these are loan cards.
Yeah.
I'm guessing you can upgrade them. Maybe a small selection. I don't know. So it's not just 5, but it's also not a huge collection of 50 or something to pick from.
Yeah, I don't know. It sounds really interesting.
Yeah. Because really definitely that thing you get in other games where you get to experience a unit of some kind that you don't have.
Yes.
And go, this is what it's good for. Wow, this is really good. And then to look out for it. You've had that opportunity to try it out. That does make sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, good question.
Yeah, thank you for that. Samsung Tab, you get yourself a carbon fibre pack. Running straight into another question. This one from Anthony Fitzgerald, who has this idea for something that we could do to mitigate some of the issues with late joiners. What about adding mini brackets for certain events? Late joiners could be grouped into their own small brackets, while players who've been running the whole event won't have to worry about them joining at the last minute. So essentially, it sounds like we're creating a second layer of multiplayer shards for when the event only has X amount of time left. So sharding players based on when they join, as well as where they are and other things.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big question of the feedback loop of what it all does and how it works. I assume, that doesn't say, but you'd probably assume you'd have to get worse prizes, right? Because if the late joiners are just getting their own mini shards, that's even easier for them to win and do well. So presumably at the same time you'd have some sort of graduated prize system. Yeah, it
does sound like it would need... I mean, the whole thing would need its own server-based logic in order to work.
Yeah, exactly. That's...
But it is again. Not wanting to do the common phrase, but I actually saw a conversation on a internal messaging thing just the other day about somebody just on the team coming up with a solution for this. So it is. I mean, it is a very well known issue, and we do want to solve it. It's just not that simple, is it? Because you're always going to have. It's just that the concept of it is wherever you draw the line, you're always then going to have the last minute.
Yes,
joiners.
There's people going to be up against the limit of whatever line you drew.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's difficult, but we are thinking about it.
Yeah, we are. Mm-hmm. Okay, on to one more question here. I've seen this question down at the bottom of loads of comment sections for like a few videos in a row, so I feel like we need to address it just essentially for your persistence. Thank you very much for your persistence, Mr. Scary Cat, who asks, event end times.
Oh yeah.
It's not fair for players on Asian servers to compete in all of the events because the events end in the middle of the night at 4 AM, for instance. Can you change the end times so that everyone can enjoy?
Right.
So this is another one of the server-based logic questions that, I mean, I assume that based on the server that we're sitting on, we could theoretically move things around, or at least that is something within our technical ability.
One of the weirder trade-offs was that there is something about having advance notice of what the event is going to be and what the tracks are and what the requirements are changes things slightly. And if we had the different servers all staggered, one of them would probably be 16 hours ahead of the other. And then everybody on that one would be asking the people on that one, like, what's coming up? And then you've got 16 hours to prepare and fuse your cars and you know exactly what's going to happen. So that's a little bit odd. You wouldn't ideally want that.
Yeah, the only other way, sort of, you think perhaps you could start the events at the exact same time.
You could, and then
finish them staggered.
Times, and that would be, and then there'd be a thing like, it's not fair because we haven't had as long to grind for our prizes or something. Yeah. And then you're like, but you could rotate around which ones finish it. It all starts to get a little bit complicated. Yeah. There's a better sort of direction, which would be if we had sort of shorter events going on throughout the day, for example. That would create more opportunities. That's something we've done a tiny bit of in the past. We've tested tiny little burst events that lasted, I think, 4 hours around Easter. That was quite interesting. A lot of people liked that
Yeah,
a lot
I
as
remember
well. So that is quite a promising angle. It would be nicer. It's true. I've seen some of the most developed games, like that have been out for a very long time, have got systems where you choose it. You go, which version do you want? Do you want the one that ends at 10 p.m., 2 a.m., 6 a.m., whatever works for you? Because even if you work in that country, maybe you work night shifts and that end time's great. And then it goes away.
Yeah.
Oh no, that's probably the kind of people we've got in it.
Yeah, but this is one of these. This is one of the grand issues, that the internet is practically instantaneous, but we live on a spinning ball, and everybody goes to sleep at different times of the day.
Yeah.
And global stuff is hilarious, and dealing with time zones is a nightmare. Not saying that to get back at you. I mean, I'm sure that we can all agree, like, running anything live, time zones are annoying.
Yeah.
They happen to us all.
Exactly. So the current time is like the best medium sort of time we could get for the world.
We've tried to find a bit of a sweet spot,
Exactly.
but no, I mean, definitely appreciate that it's not going to be ideal for everyone.
Yeah.
So continued discussion.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely something that we know about. Okay, we've got 2 more questions and I've picked them essentially because I liked them. So here comes. This is a Hutch pick. So well done, Julian Mills, for picking up a carbon fibre pack. They said, you really need a better microphone when you aren't in the office.
Oh yes, that's true.
My iPhone was on full volume and I could barely hear anything. Still a great and interesting show.
Is this
that's
referencing
nice.
the
Yeah,
our
this
Christmas
is the holiday special. I apologise for the condition of the footage that we displayed during the holiday special. We went to Joe Macari's showroom and they were lovely. Thank you very much again, Joe Macari. We went there with our big camera that we're using right now, with a proper microphone, and none of it worked. We were on the backup of our backup, which is that we had a little microphone that we usually plug into one of our GoPros, into my phone, which was our audio recorder, and we were recording the video from a GoPro that was sitting on a box. So if you're wondering what happened there, that's what happened.
And if we'd been anywhere else, I think we'd have just gone, we should do it again and sort that out. But that was our sort of one opportunity.
Yeah, it was our one time to get it done. So I am very sorry about that. We did try our best.
We'll just have to go back to Joe Macari's.
We'll have to go again. Like a lot of people were saying, lovely scenery. Look at all those nice cars.
Yeah.
Look at all those cars from Italy that we shouldn't talk about.
Yeah.
And speaking of cars that we shouldn't talk about, a question from Park Ski, who asks, will we be seeing the premium Japanese car that begins with a T and ends with Toyota?
That one.
Yeah, do you know the one I mean?
I think so.
It's very possible that you know what I mean. Yeah, famously missing from a lot of video games.
Yeah, and we are not going to be changing that situation anytime soon. We don't really know all the details. It's just traditionally that particular brand has not seen games as a avenue of interest for them. And although actually the response from car manufacturers has been amazing to top drives, we haven't managed to change their outlook as of yet. But
we try.
Ideally, there's some great cars. They've got some very cool cars coming out. It'd be lovely to get them in at some point. But nothing probably not.
All right, there we go.
Yeah,
okay. We hope you enjoyed that very rambly response to all of your fantastic questions. So thanks very much. And now we're going to talk about something else. Just in case you've noticed that it's now nighttime, we had some technical issues, so you can enjoy all the continuity errors in this episode. Go back and rewatch the whole thing and see if you can spot them all.
I feel like technical issues should be another T-shirt we do at some point. It seems to get,
I think we definitely need to find something. Technical issues would be good. Okay. It is a new year 2019, which means that we have more events for you coming up, and that means new prize cars. So I would like, John, if you could tell us about the new one that we've got coming up this week.
So the new prize car that is up for grabs this week is the Dodge Challenger SRT Demon 2017 model. And it's just a beast, basically. I think, as the name would suggest, it's a very appropriate name. I think it's fair to say all Dodge Challenger, iconic model. They're all fast. They then kind of up things a little bit with the Hellcat, which is really quite. We've got a couple of them in the game, normal and wide body. They're quite some machines, quite fast in a straight, very fast in a straight line, very high top speeds, and then the Demon just comes along and just obliterates sort of everything, really. It's just unbelievably powerful car. You
Not technically everything in Top Drives.
No, sorry, yeah, it's not.
But,
But I mean, kind of everything in the muscle
things.
car,
Yeah.
everything in the muscle car space. But it's just one of those cars where I think there's always a bit of a kind of power sort of what they call it, kind of power race kind of going on in the world of cars. They keep getting more powerful and faster in the straight line, round corners and things. And you always sort of, it keeps feeling like it's peaked, and then I think a car like this kind of just comes along and it just takes everyone by surprise. I mean, it's I was looking at a few stats earlier today. Running on the right fuel, it produces about 840 brake horsepower, which is just
That's a few.
vast amount for what is the Dodge Challenger is a fairly kind of mass-produced car, and that is a huge amount of power to put in it.
It's enough.
There's a few. It's not a race or not a challenge that we have in Top Drives, but one stat that stood out was that it does 0 to 30 miles an hour in 1 second, which I think is
1 second.
Yeah, just 1 second dead.
It's a scary second.
And yeah, it's just like 30 miles an hour is not fast, but it's still
1 second isn't long.
no.
Yeah.
So just insane kind of off the line acceleration. I think my favourite fact of all about it is that it's the first production car in the world that can actually pull a wheelie while accelerating. So yeah, I think it's that. It's always, it looks comical. Is that in one of the Fast and Furious films? I think.
Yeah,
Vin Diesel's character
But
does that.
is that just like a little, or is that like a
No,
whoa?
I'm pretty sure it'll be a little wheelie.
Doing.
Okay.
Okay.
But just the fact that it can actually lift its front, it's lifting. It's like that. There's a big engine that's sat in the front of it, and it is so powerful. It can lift that whole thing off the ground, even if it's momentarily. It's So yes, not something that we're going to accurately represent in Top Drives.
Not gonna.
No, it's not going to
doing
wheelie down the drag strip, but you can imagine it doing so.
In your mind's eye.
Yeah, and actually, I thought I can demonstrate it here. I thought, in terms of what it's actually capable of doing, if we take an old favourite, McLaren 12C. That if you've completed the campaign, you'll have one. Very, very fast supercar still. I mean, a few years old, but still right up there. If we put it on a half-mile drag strip, I think it's probably obvious what's going to happen. But if we just run this now, and it's
there it goes.
The Demon is just away. It's several car lengths victory, between the two cars as it goes across the line. Just very, very impressive. So absolute, monster on the drag strips.
Yeah.
There's not going to be a huge amount in the game that can touch that. If we actually switch to something a little bit more kind of the McLaren's terrain, do it on a fast circuit, standing start. So again, the Demon does it kind of gets away off the line. Actually, kind of is winning the race until we get to the slightly twistier section at the end.
Yeah.
And then back on the home straight, and it's if that finish line was,
Wow.
another 50 yards down the road,
Yeah.
it would even have the McLaren 12C on a fast circuit. So it's it's really quite a car. And I know I never know how much other players kind of worry about this. I know it's really about the performance of your cars, but I don't know. I do love I've got favorite photos in the game, and that actually makes me want to keep a car more than say other cars. And actually, the Demon, it's just a great shot. It's I kind of love the fact it's in a slightly low key, kind of mid-grey color, not nothing too kind of crazy like lime green or yellow.
The Hellcats, yeah.
it's quite low key, but it has just be quite a car to add to your collection.
Yeah, and for those of you out there who, like me, were lucky enough to get a Hellcat already, I didn't get the wide body one, but got a good green there, and it's been amazing for me on drag races. Anytime there's any event where I can put that in on a drag race, that's what I do. It's amazing, and I've maxed it on engine and weight, and so I thought I'd try it against the Demon. Imagine somebody got the Demon but they couldn't fuse it, which is reasonable. It's quite hard to fuse Legendary. The Demon still wins,
right?
So so it's better than an upgraded Hellcat.
It's definitely going to make you feel pretty good about coming into event. There's a lot of, I think, with the recent American Dream events and things like that, there's actually quite a lot of big fast muscle cars in circulation that are kind of dominating some of the drag challenges. I think if you're lucky enough to win the Demon, you're going to feel pretty good about rocking up to some of the events in the future with that. And
it's only RQ28. We got to 30. I think that's the handling bringing it down.
Yeah.
But in Top Drive, especially if RQ matters, that's kind of a good thing. It makes it a specialist.
Yes.
So you get good value for your RQ if you're in a straight line.
Yeah.
Nice. So there you go. That's something for you to take a look at over the next few days, and good luck. Another thing that we wanted to show you, it's in an upcoming update. We've got a new environment, and we'd like to tease you with some nice footage from it.
Yeah, so there's already been one sneak peek, we called it.
Has there?
Peek with an A, because it's a mountain.
I like that.
A, but
it's very nice.
There's a lot of challenges on it.
But yeah, so gone with a mountain environment, a sort of alpine themed environment, you could say. Filled with, like you say, filled with a lot of different challenges. Obviously, kind of in the game at the moment, we've got this idea of kind of a mountain road with kind of hairpin road and some other things. This is kind of taking that and sort of really expanding on it in a big way. There's I think people are going to like. There's a brand new hairpin challenge with tunnels, which I think quite exciting. So you get that little bit of kind of like, have you been overtaken in the corner?
Yeah.
But also we sort of played about with the dimensions of kind of the hairpins and things like that to kind of really put the focus on sort of different characteristics of the car compared to the old one.
Right. So the existing one, it's very straight.
Yeah.
And I find 0 to 60 is really just incredibly important on it.
Yeah. So I think this one's the idea is to kind of play slightly more to handling side of things. And actually, I was just going to show one of my favorite other challenge in it at the moment is it's called the Boulder Slalom, which kind of suggests what it is.
Yeah.
But I love the slalom in the main game. I think it's just something about that kind of seeing those cars kind of weaving through the cones at high speed that I love. And this again sort of takes that idea and actually kind of expands on it. So you've got to kind of almost imagine some incident has happened up in these mountain roads. And a number of boulders have come crashing down,
right,
and scattered themselves around the road.
Still good for a race.
Yeah, and it's kind of perfect setup for a high speed car challenge through them. So yeah, just
Demon versus
looking
12C.
I thought I'd stick with the Demon versus the 12C. Again, probably obvious who's going to win. So you got a few kind of barricades, cones to get through first, and then actually start getting into the boulders. It just gets tighter and tighter and tighter, like for the cars. So I think there's something quite nice with the kind of the handling. It just comes into play more and more as the race goes on,
right?
And just gives it quite a nice dynamic. So hopefully people are going to have fun with that.
Yeah.
Nice. And that should be hitting their games soon.
Ish. Yeah.
I'd say weeks rather than months.
Yeah, probably.
Well, that is it for this week, but you know what to do. Head down into the comments and leave your questions. If you see another comment that someone else has left you like the look of, give it a like, because we look at those comments first. We're going to try our best to make 2019 just as good, if not better, than 2018. Top Drives is only going up and up, I think. We're really excited about it. So thanks very much for watching and playing Top Drives. This has been the Top Drive Show.